Today we have, as our guest, we have General Parker. He is with the African Americans Violence Reform Group. He is a political director. He's calling in from the Democratic National Convention currently held in Denver, Colorado. Hello, Mr. Parker. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing fine, Dan.
I appreciate you taking time out of what I would presume to be a very busy schedule during this week.
Well,
and as I indicated, introducing you, you're with the African Americans Violence Reform. Is that correct?
African Americans for VAWA Reform.
And is your position the political director?
Yes, it is.
And how long have you been involved with this organization?
I've been involved with them since February. It was first established in January. That's when we were organized. And I've been involved ever since February of this year.
And if you could tell our listeners and viewers what exactly does your work entail?
Well, my work entails trying to get a hold of as many legislators as possible and raise their level of consciousness and make them aware of how this Violence Against Women Act, though it was well intended to begin with, has really been misused, and it really has been affecting the American families, and disproportionately the African American families.
And how has it been misused?
Well, anytime that you have mandatory arrest policies, it affects people because not all complaints really need to be have to end in arrest. And if you have a policy that is set up to arrest strictly males for domestic violence, because there's money behind that, and there's money for every male that's arrested, but there's not a dime that goes to the prosecutions or the police departments or the judicial branch of the criminal justice system. That there seems to be a sort of a bias to want to go ahead and make sure you arrest as many males as possible, because it's conducive to your economic livelihood. So,
now you said that there's money for every male arrested. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, the Violence Against Women Act, it was established in 1994, and it's been reauthorized. It comes up for reauthorization every 5 years. And what happens is, in order to try to help women who were being abused in the past, I think they kind of went a little overboard, and they have these mandatory arrest policies. And anytime the police are called out, and all a woman has to say is that she fears for her safety, then there's an order of protection that's put out on the male at the time. But then again, sometimes this has been used in the reverse. A lot of times you have police officers who are familiar with this act, and they sometimes use it against their wives. Okay, but the point here is we're talking about false allegations, and false allegations tear children away from their parents, and it's just not right. And more often than not, it keeps the male out of the family, and your right. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Your rights to due process are violated because you don't get to face your accuser. Okay, she gets to meet ex parte with the judge. There's an order of protection taken out against you immediately. You're not allowed back into your home. She can ask that you pay the house note, pay the rent. You're not allowed to come around the house. You're not allowed to come around the children. And you're not allowed to get anything out of your house. Okay, so you got to go back and forth to work. You got to make this court hearing. It's usually 2 to 3 weeks off, and you don't have any recourse but to just show up, because if you don't show up that day, she gets everything that she's asking for. So, and that could be up to 2 years for you to be away from your children and not see them. So until a family court judge hears it, then you have to meet at an exchange center. So it's tearing up this country, it's tearing up families, and I mean, there's studies that shows that children are more likely to end up in prison, end up in gangs, end up using drugs, end up being teenage parents without the father in the home or in the child's life. And if you just tear a father out of a child's life, and he doesn't have any recourse. He doesn't have anybody on his side, and he doesn't have any say-so in a hearing. Okay, that's 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, and these kids are without their dad. Okay, and it's just, I've been through it, so excuse me. Sometimes I get a little emotional, but it's just hard to explain, especially when you need an advocate for you, and they're never there. They have a bill that's going through the House of Representatives right now that's trying to get passed, called H.R. 6088, where the ABA is going to get $150 million to represent women who allege abuse in the home or in the relationship. It doesn't matter if she's lying. It doesn't matter even if she's telling the truth. It's still there's no what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, but if I'm the defendant at the time, there's nobody to represent me. Okay, so that's still violating my rights to due process. But she can make a complaint, and there's somebody to represent her. This is looked at as a civil case, but it has criminal case ramifications behind it. So your property's taken away, your right to liberty is taken away, and you don't have your rights to due process.
Now, do you have the right to appeal?
You don't have right to appeal. Not for order of protection, no.
Now, you mentioned earlier, and if you wouldn't mind, I know a lot of our listeners and viewers probably can associate either your story or parts of it and relate it to what, unfortunately, they're probably going through. If you wouldn't mind taking some time to tell our viewers what experience that you personally have had with this and how it has affected you.
Well, in 2003, my wife and I were going through some bad times. I'm a Boilermaker by trade, union Boilermaker, so sometimes I have to leave and go on the road to go to work. Most of those times I go out on the road, I had to take my son with me because my wife had refused to even watch him. Well, we had a disagreement this time, and I left, and I found work elsewhere, and I took my son with me. And unbeknownst to me at the time, she had friends who had told her about this Violence Against Women's Act, which I had no knowledge of. And she knew of a way that she can allege abuse, and she doesn't have to pay for an attorney. She doesn't have to pay for the court case. She doesn't have to pay to file for divorce. And she can get custody of our son and make me pay child support all at the same time, even though she was the one in the wrong. And I had no knowledge of it. All I know is that one day when I came back to St. Louis at the time, after being, I guess I was gone for work for 2 weeks, and I had my son with me so he could see his mom. And she had me set up with the police department to be arrested for parental kidnapping. So I'm figuring this will all blow over. They'll find out she's just mad. She's just using the criminal justice system to get back at me. But I didn't know it was part of her grand plan at the time, to try to gain an advantage over me during our divorce and custody battle. So my son was ripped out of my arms. I spent 2 days in jail. One of the police officers decided he was going to take it upon himself to show up at in the state's attorney's office the next morning and make them see just how bad of a guy he felt I was in his eyes. And they gave me a $10,000 cash bond, okay? And I wasn't allowed to bond out till my lawyer was able to get a bond reduction. And it cost me $400, and I got out of jail 2 days later. But I missed 2 days of work, and I still felt like this will all blow over at the first court hearing because everybody who knew me and knew how I was with my child, they couldn't even believe it, even the thought of a parental kidnapping. So anyway, the officer falsified the report. My wife perjured herself in court in order to try to make her claim look credible.